In our last lesson, we talked about Article 24 of the Civil Code. It's a directive addressed to our courts ordering them to be vigilant about the rights of those who are suffering from moral dependence, ignorance, indigence, mental weakness, tender age, or some other handicap. We also talked about the basis for this directive, and that is the doctrine of parens patriae. This principle means that the state, taking on the role as the parent of our country, has to step in to protect the rights of those who are at a clear disadvantage. Under this doctrine, the state is allowed to use the fundamental powers, police power, eminent domain, and taxation to somehow level the playing field for the disadvantaged members of our society. During the last lesson, we also talked about the contracts of adhesion. These are ready-made contracts or contracts that have been prepared exclusively by one party ahead of time, and the other party has no other action but to accept it in its entirety or reject it completely. However, kapatid, it's wrong to assume that a contract of adhesion is invalid per se. Courts will not step in and invalidate a contract just because it was prepared by one party. In reality, the other party has a choice. Take it or leave it. In case of doubt in the terms of the contract, the courts will interpret these strictly against the party who made the contract and liberally in favor of the party who merely adheres to it. Today, we're taking a look at the next provision, Article 25 of the Civil Code. We'll explore the meaning of thoughtless extravagance and the remedies against it. All of this and more coming right up. Hi, my name is Lex and welcome to Lex in Motion. In this channel, I'll be helping you build your competence, confidence, and capability in law school. Start today by hitting the subscribe button below. New episodes are posted every Friday. Article 25 of the Civil Code provides that thoughtless extravagance in expenses for pleasure or display during a period of acute public want or emergency may be stopped by order of the courts at the instance of any government or private charitable institution. This is a relatively short provision of the Civil Code, kapatid, and there is really nothing difficult to understand in it. It's part of the chapter on human relations and it's one of those provisions that are labeled as reading matters. Reading matter man itong maituturing, kapatid, ay paborito naman itong itanong sa mga recitation kung hindi man sa mga examination. Paborito itong tanong dahil walang desisyon ng Supreme Court tungkol sa provision na ito. This is that rare part of the law where we're free to interpret the meaning of the provision on our own. Paborito ning itanong ng mga professor ang Article 25 dahil curious sila sa kung ano ang ibig sabihin sa iyo ng batas batay sa iyong murang isipan gayong ilang linggo ka pa lang sa law school. Dahil na rin dito walang masyadong malinamnam na komentary sa provision na ito. Madalas itong laktawan sa mga reviewer at kung meron mang discussion mahaba na siguro ang 1 to 2 paragraphs. For Article 25 to apply, the following requisites must be present. 1. There must be thoughtless extravagance in spending. 2. Such spending must happen at a time of acute public want or emergency. 3. The spending can be stopped by the courts. 4. The courts can only take action upon the instance of a government or private charitable institution. According to Justice Paras, Article 25 of the Civil Code exists because thoughtless extravagance, especially during times of emergencies, can incite the passions of those who cannot afford to spend. In a world where the gap between the rich and the poor, the haves and the have-nots, is so great and so wide, a ridiculous showing of wealth can lead to rioting and vandalism. To a certain extent, this provision exists because of the Filipino value of pakikisama. Thoughtless extravagance refers to some extreme showing of wealth. There is nothing wrong with the displaying of the ridiculous number of sports cars you may own o mga bisikleta na gawa ng mga sikat na designer kahit sa Instagram mo lang. There is absolutely nothing wrong with wealth, kapatid. Money for me is a tool. It's a means to an end. I like money and I like making money and spending it on the people or the institutions I care about. What Article 25 seeks to prevent is for a person or group of persons to display so much wealth at a time of great public need or some other emergency. Ang halimbawa na itinuro sa amin noon many years ago ang pagkakaroon ng engranding kasalan o okasyon sa panahon na maraming naghihirap, walang trabaho at walang makain. Another example was the Great Flood of 40 Days and 40 Nights. That happened to much of Luzon in the 1970s. Ask your parents about it kapatid dahil mga kwento na lang din ang inabot ko dito. During this great flood, my parents were stuck in the second floor of their house. They could not get out. They had nothing by way of food and clothing and medicines. What was especially tragic was that my mother had just given birth to my eldest sister at that time. May mga hinuhulog na supplies ang gobyerno mula sa mga helicopter at kailangang lumangoy para maabot ito lalo kung hindi tumama sa bubong. Another example of acute public want or emergency was martial law. By express provision of General Order No. 15, President Ferdinand Marcos, using his special legislative power, ordered that town fiestas should be limited to 1 day only. He did this on the basis of Article 25 of the Civil Code. This was during the times and I'm sure may mga bayan pa rin sa probinsya kung saan ang mga fiesta ay umaabot ng 3 araw. Ngayon na panahon ng pandemya kapatid kung saan ang ating mga jeepney driver ay nag-aabang sa mga stoplight. Bit-bit ang malalaking cardboard kung saan sila nanghihingi ng limos. This for me is a picture of acute public want. It's a medical emergency which no less than Malacanang has deigned to acknowledge. When you combine the ridiculous showing of wealth at the time where about 2 of every 5 Filipinos cannot find a job, then the first 2 requisites are present. From there, the courts have the power to stop the ridiculous showing of wealth, but only at the instance of a government or private charitable institution. Kadalasang itanong sa mga quiz at exam ay may acute public want or emergency at sa ganitong emergency, ang mga mayayaman sa isang bayan ay may malaking party at okasyon. Sa okasyon na ito, hindi kumbirado si Mayor pero kasama lahat ng konsihal ng bayan. Maaari bang ipahinto ni Mayor yung party base sa Article 25? The answer kapatid is no. The Mayor cannot summarily stop or enjoin the acts of thoughtless extravagance even when there is a time of acute public want or emergency. Article 25 specifically provides that these acts can be stopped only by order of the court. The courts can only act at the petition of a government or private charitable institution. In this problem, the Mayor is not a government or private charitable institution. Thus, he does not have legal standing to bring the action. The court also requires that thoughtless extravagance can be stopped by order of the courts, not by the order of the Mayor. Maituturing nating government charitable institution ang Philippine Charity Sweepstakes Office o PCSO. It's a government-owned and controlled corporation directly under the office of the President. The purpose of the corporation is to run sweepstakes or lotteries and the proceeds thereof are used to fund the government's efforts towards helping the needy. For private charitable institutions, this covers a wide range of non-profit or not-for-profit groups whose purpose is to help the same cause. For our part, Lex in Motion supports the Anawim Home for the Elderly and the Abandoned, Grace to be Born, a shelter for women in crisis and other mercy ministries under the Light of Jesus Family. All of these are non-profit charitable institutions who have the standing to stop thoughtless extravagance. Ayon sa Article 25 ng Civil Code, courts can order the stopping of thoughtless extravagance. How do we do this from a practical point? What kind of action or petition are we going to file? The correct answer kapatid is found under Rule 58 of the Rules of Court. Rule 58 tells us about preliminary injunctions. A preliminary injunction is an order granted at any stage of an action or proceeding prior to the judgment or final order, requiring a party or a particular court, agency, or a person to refrain from a particular act or acts. A preliminary injunction, kapatid, is a provisional remedy. It can be granted even when there is no prior judgment or final order in a case. Dahil ito ay provisional remedy, pwede itong mapawalan ng bisa sa final order ng korte o maaari rin itong maging final o permanent injunction. Kung ang gusto ng isang party ay pigilan ng defendant sa kung ano man ang kanyang gustong gawin, ang tawag sa injunction ay prohibitory injunction. Kung ang goal naman natin kapatid ay para kumilos ang defendant, then the remedy we want is called a mandatory injunction. There's plenty more I want to discuss with you about remedial law and civil procedure in particular, and I'm very excited to share this series with you. To my mind kapatid, ang source ng confusion sa ilalim ng Article 25 ay ang gamit ng salitang government. Government here does not mean the local government unit or their executive officers, such as the mayor, governor, or pwedeng congressman. Government here is used to describe the charitable institution. Kung isinulat lang nila ay public or private government charitable institution, ay hindi na sana tayo malilito. To summarize tonight's lesson, number 1, Article 25 of the Civil Code prohibits thoughtless extravagance at the time of acute public want or emergency. 2. The prohibition can be ordered by the courts under Rule 58 of the Rules of Court. 3. The petition has to be filed by a government or private charitable institution. Salamat kapatid at tinabot mo ang ending lang lesson na ito. As I've mentioned a few weeks ago, I want to start a brand new series on law, language, and logic. The 3 ingredients of success in your exams. For tonight's quiz, I want to assess where you are now and how much help you might need for this series. So for tonight, only ang quiz natin ay essay. You can take the quiz through the link in the description down below. If you would like us to continue with our discussion of the Civil Code, please type yes in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Like and share this video for good law school karma, and I will see you next Friday.